Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Welcome to the Juice this morning. We've got a great panel. We are going to discuss live venues and artists, and you guys have been, we discussed this a year ago, so we're gonna talk about what this year's been like, and then talk about what things look like moving forward. But I'm Laurie Supinski with Stark Garden, and I'll just introduce everybody real quick. We've got Murphy Ackerman over there with Stark Garden running the show. We've got Wallace, Tami Vandenberg, and Andrea Butler. And he's got juice.
That's not just juice.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that was
product placement. Nicely done, AB. Nicely done.
I didn't even pay him to do that.
Oh, he's charging you, Dre. He's charging you.
That was totally the plan for the juice. Was when we were going to launch this program last year as a live event at Stark Garden. It was going to be like a Bloody Mary, mimosa bar, morning conversation. So maybe at some point we will get to that. So, yeah,
We will.
that's my hope. But I mean, I've been revisiting a lot of the panels that we talked to at the very beginning of the pandemic and the shutdowns for last year, and really interesting to hear people's stories about what their year has been like. And clearly a business was shut down. Then there was, some ramping back up, and it's been a roller coaster. And I think that, live venues and artists have been really hit the hardest, in my opinion, because you guys have really never had an opportunity to ramp back up. Restaurants have been sort of, up and down, the opportunity for outdoor dining and things like that, takeout, and all that good stuff. But I mean, the concert scene and live event scene has really not had that opportunity to even, do much of anything. So I'm really curious to hear your stories and just hear what you think the future looks like, and if it's, do we ever go back to the way things were before? I think the answer to that in so many ways, in so many cases, is no, because I don't think the world will ever be the same for anybody. So anyway, enough of my rambling. I want to hear from you guys. So I'll just call on you and then just kind of talk a little bit about what your year's been like, and then we'll go from there. So Dre, good morning.
Good morning. It's been a really interesting year in pretty much every aspect. But I think last year when everything hit and we talked, it was more about predictions and trying to figure out when would things open. And I remember I said, I was I don't think it's going to be till fall of 2021. Now I have reservations about that. but I do think that that's probably pretty close. It's just been a really weird time. Everything from your schedule never really being real because stuff is changing. It seems like daily, we'd be booked for shows and then you're waiting, trying to see is this going to be actually happen? Then there's the online aspects of it, the virtual, performances and stuff like that. And I've done those a few times. Don't love them, but I'll do it. I think the times when I've been excited about it is when it's been an experience and I was able to design the set out, and things like that. Then I was oh, okay, this is incrementally better. but yeah, in general, it's not the same. A lot's changed, and I don't know that things will honestly go back to the way that they were. I do think that people definitely want to get closer to that. So I think we'll just kind of see what happens. I just, even with the vaccine, it's definitely good. I think a chunk of people will get back to normal, but the reality is some people can't get the vaccine yet. There's still a ton of unvaccinated children and teenagers, and that's probably not going to be handled for a while. And some people will never be able to get it. So it's like we should always be careful, which I think most, it's something we never thought about before. And, it's interesting that this is probably the first time that we've really ever had to think about that. Before, we were living life pretty recklessly and just assumed everyone would be okay. So.
Yeah, really, that's so true. I think people's, just in general, people's mindset is different about being in crowded situations. And I know, I think everybody wants to get back to live concerts and, being around a lot of people, but I don't know if it is going to be in that same capacity. So it'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
Tami, good morning.
Good morning.
How has your year been?
Hard. It's been really hard. Yeah, it's a friend of mine, when I shared this event, said, did you ever think you'd be like turning all of your activist energy into saving your own industry?
Right.
And no, never saw that coming. Never thought I would be on really many Zoom calls at all. I've never embraced that stuff, but I'm always an in-person, let me get on a plane to see you kind of person. But yeah, I never ever thought I would be spending a lot of the year begging elected officials for help. Never thought I would be spending so much time learning portals and setting timers for when a grant drops and refreshing and trying in a different browser and uploading a document 50 times. And so it's been very, very challenging. Certainly I think all of us have had a lot of really good introspection about what we care about and what matters and how we want to spend our time and what we do want things for us personally to look like on the other side. So I've loved that. I've valued that. I've read more books this year than I've read since university. I had the best garden of my life. Those were the things I had to do to stay mentally healthy during the relentless bureaucratic struggles and the constant begging and so many interviews about how bad things are. It's just like, I can't wait to do a press conference about something good.
Yeah.
It's just like, how bad are things now, And so, yeah, very, very challenging. And to your point of, what do we want to see on the other side? There are so many things I want to see different, but live music is not one of them. I want to get back into my venue. I want 420 people back there yelling and dancing and having the best night of their life. And I think it will happen. I agree with Dre. We were looking at fall of this year. We were even looking at maybe some summer stuff outdoors. And now with the numbers now, it's just, I think my last comment on this is just the struggle of what to spend time on, right? Like, do you try to do something in the summer? Do you just say, forget it? I just want to read more books and garden. I can do this stuff later, or is it all just going to be canceled anyway? I think I read a great book called Longevity, and it's about, who lives a long time and who doesn't and all the reasons why. And the type of work you do, if you do the kind of work where you never see any progress, it actually can take years off your life. Like the film Death of a Bureaucrat from Cuba. Just like you're just doing the spinning and spinning and spinning, and you actually, like, your body starts to revolt. And so I've just spent a lot of time figuring out how to spend time and how to not waste time and how to not drive myself crazy by constantly trying to do things that will all be canceled.
Yeah. AB. You're on mute.
You're muted.
I don't like any of these Zoom calls and mutes and unmuting. It's not normal to me. So I definitely felt it when Tami talked about how she wasn't planning on that being a part of her life ever. But it was a crazy. It's just been a crazy year and it's. I guess halfway through it, a few months into it, when we realized that, like, you know, it was going to be longer than we thought. You know what I mean? Because you go from thinking like 6 to 9 months. That's a long enough time to deal with this, right?
Right.
And then it's like, no, that's not enough time. I think a few months into things, I guess I kind of stopped thinking about what was going to happen in the future, and just kind of had more of a inward, personal, family, self focus, which I felt like was kind of selfish at first. But then I started thinking about like all the times that I had given time and energy to other people and other things, and I started to not feel so bad about it. And then I started to enjoy talking to less people. And so, but I guess to the bigger point of like artistically, you know what I mean? I just was trying to take advantage of whatever opportunities would present themselves, or whatever opportunities I was trying to make happen for myself. But that was just a very different, because, you know, the opportunities became virtual DJ events, and like Dre said, like those, you know. Shout out to those DJs that enjoy those things, and to the performers that enjoy those things, and definitely want to thank them for putting time and energy into that. You know what I mean? But for me, I found that some of those events would just remind me of what I really would want the events to be like.
Right. Yeah.
And missing like the connections with people through those events. So then like doing it is just kind of like like it's too similar and not different enough from the thing, you know. It's like my wife and I are trying to eat healthier, right? And we decided to do this no dairy thing, right? So like she's like, well, you can still have a hamburger, and I'm like, well, yeah, but it's not a cheeseburger now. So like it's too close. It's so close to the cheeseburger that like I don't want to even be around it at all. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how I felt about some of the DJ stuff. Is like all these things are so similar to what I would normally be doing, but I don't get to see the faces, and I don't get to have the conversations and the interactions that I love to have, and see people. I don't get to see people together doing the thing, and then that's always in the back of my head when I'm doing the virtual events sometimes. And it was just like, it got to be, you know, frustrating. And then, you know, there was a lot of social and political distractions throughout the summer. So those things felt a little bit more important too, than maybe some of the artistic things that I was doing. So,
yeah.
And it's yeah, talking about this stuff is kind of, you know, I actually haven't talked about like these things that much, with the exception of like pretty much with Dre and Tami like in the last couple of weeks. But like I kind of also got burnt out of just talking in circles about, should we plan this thing and should we not plan this thing, and how do you plan this outdoor concert and have squares designated for people to go into, and then they have to wear their mask when they're outside the square, but if they're in the square they can take their mask off and have a drink, and they can't dance with anyone in the other square. You know what I mean? It's like you had to put all this time, and I don't think people realize like all the energy that goes into producing all these virtual events or producing an event that's, COVID safe enough for everyone to even feel like coming out.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. I mean, in my mind, it seems like the people that can, the artists that can link with production companies to produce TV shows, basically. We might be back to like multi-million-dollar videos, in order to sell your songs or to, because it doesn't seem like the concert stuff is coming back. Even when the weekend when he performed at the Super Bowl and announced his tour dates, I got excited, but then I realized that the tour dates were for 2022. So I was like, oh, like that's, so it, even someone like him is spending $7 million to perform at the Super Bowl so that he can promote his concert series for 2022, which is really crazy to me. So there literally will be another Super Bowl happening before his concert, before his shows. So.
Yeah, it is crazy. I was just saying to you guys before, we went live that, there's a venue in New York where the old site of Woodstock is. It's called Bethel Woods, and they have great concerts and lots of, just lots of really great artists. And last year, obviously everything got canceled. And early this year, I looked at the schedule because I usually like to go a couple times in the summer. And it, like a lot of the concerts from last year had been rescheduled. So it was really exciting. And I just this morning, just before this panel, looked, I just wanted to check, and they're gone. Like there's maybe 3 concerts left on the schedule, and they're way down in August. And it's like really, really disheartening because it's the venue that now is, struggling. It's obviously the artists, and even big, like you said, AB, big name artists are, you're floundering. It's like, I don't know, I don't know when I can plan. I don't know what to do. And it is mentally draining. And I think most people that I've talked to in, on these panels and stuff have talked about how you had to turn inward to kind of keep yourself sane. And realize that, how am I going to get through this? And part of it was like trying to find that inner peace, whatever it was. And I think that's why a lot of people did find a lot of pleasure and surprising gratification out of just being with family and kind of hunkering in on the really basic things in life. But I do want to touch on, a little bit about what you guys were talking about, the virtual performances. So clearly, they're not the same experience. Clearly, artists were trying that as just a way to get through. I mean, do you see, because I think we've seen a lot of innovation come through this last year in different industries and with different businesses. Do you feel like there's any innovation, maybe virtually or anything that has come out of this last year that might carry through, that's been sort of a good thing, not just like a desperation, I've got to do this to just get through this? Or is there anything that you think is interesting that has come out of it that's new for either concerts or artists, live events?
I would say the most encouraging thing I've seen that is one of the things I hope we can keep. I have my list of like, can we keep all these things from 2020? Is the expanse of people into the public spaces and into the roads and into the parks, and loosening up of our, in my opinion, some of our draconian ideas around what we can do where in public space. I was just in New Orleans. I finally left the state for the first time since last year. And if you've ever been to New Orleans, like you cannot keep the music down. And Frenchman Street, they literally had cones on both sides, and they had numerous parking spots on each side. It was right by DBA and the Spotted Cat. And, they just had bar tables out there and cones, and cars were just slowly driving through, and the band was there, and people were dancing up and down the street. And it was so cool. It was just so invigorating, and people were a little close. The numbers are super, super low down there. So people are feeling good, and the weather's great. So people want to be outside. But I was just thinking, I really want to see more of that everywhere. Just more people outside, more people, like all of these social zones have been fantastic. And I know like Festival of the Arts is talking about booking music throughout the different social zones. And I've been approached by several musicians about wanting to kind of play out in front of bars. And so I don't really have much to add on sort of the virtual shows. I think we had a couple just kind of raise awareness, but they were just an enormous amount of work, raised zero money. And so we stopped doing that almost immediately. Then there was the added issue of sort of like furloughing your entire staff, right? So I've been approached. So many people are like, "Oh, we want to support you. We're willing to pay like $100 to run it out and do this panel or whatever." And it's just like, I can't. Like, I need a staff to do that. I can't bring everybody back for $100, So, but in terms of expanding into the public space and sort of like reclaiming space from cars, and I think that's been a real highlight of the last year for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I mean, other cities do that or have done that so much better than we have. So I think that this has been sort of eye-opening in that regard. I mean, I love the idea of, being outside, not just in the summertime, there's a whole lot of other months that we can accommodate being outside. So that's pretty cool. Tami, I wanted to talk a little bit too about, you said about, asking for help and being online, looking for grant money. And I know that the Shuttered Venue grant has been a colossal failure so far. And there were other grant opportunities, throughout the year. And it's been really hard to watch how people have had to apply for those. You're encouraged to look for grants, and then you sit there for 4 hours and can't even get online. So maybe could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Thursday was a low point in the last year and a half after this incredible organization, NEVA, National Independent Venue Association, which just still blows my mind that venue owners are a very fiercely independent motley crew and don't always work well with others. And the fact that we got organized, and I had nothing to do with organizing them. I'm just utterly impressed with what they've done, and we're members of the Michigan Association as well. So just sort of like that, immediately we got to get organized. We need to talk to the politicians. We need to save our stages, right? It was just all about like, we will not survive. And so many have already not survived. I mean, I don't know the exact number, but many, many, many venues have already closed. So I have just been fighting for every single dollar I can get my hands on. So PPP, 2 rounds of PPP, CARES funds through the county, CARES funds through the state. But the big one, the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant, that's the game changer, right? I would say half of venues, if they do not get that, they will close. That's the feeling I get from all the NEVA calls. We can survive without it. It will be very hard, but because we have that front bar, that we'll be able to operate a little bit, which thank goodness we did that. I mean, we knew when we opened a venue, we knew it was a very, very high risk industry. And so we were looking at how do we sort of supplement this? How do we get some additional income in? Which is why we did the front bar and the pinball and the arcade. And then we got that social zone last year. So we've been able to selling shirts and renting pinball machines, So we've actually hustled in so many different ways and had a little bit more available to us because of the way we arranged our business, we've been a lot better off than most venues. However, so yes, finally the big grant, which for us would be $500,000, right? This is significant money. This could help us stay afloat for a couple of years, because when will we become profitable again? That's another thing. Like, getting shows going is one thing, and then actually turning any kind of profit's a whole nother thing. And so here, noon Thursday, 15,000 venues at their computer, and it was first come, first serve. So everyone is literally like, every document and scanner, printer, tech support, accountant, and like and sweating, because there's not enough for everybody, of course, And so here we go, launch. I can't log in. Login doesn't work. Okay, try again, refresh. Okay, different browser. Okay. Fortunately, my partner is a tech guy. And keep in mind, like, I worked at nonprofits. I've written grants. I have a tech guy in my house. I am so utterly privileged, and I can't I can't figure this stuff out. And think about, the mom and pop New Orleans jazz place that's been handed down from generation to generation, and half these documents that were lost in Katrina, So it's like, so here, and I can't even remotely figure this thing out. And so,
did you think that it was? Did you know that it was a problem with the site, or were you thinking you were having trouble? How did you know?
Initially, of course, you're just like, it's just me. Everybody else is in.
Right.
They're already done, and I can't even figure out how to log in because I'm so stupid, And then, fortunately, I started getting on some forums, and every single comment was like, I can't get in. Are you in? Nobody can get in. And then everybody started to be able to get in, and we're like, okay, whew, we're in. And then we're all mad dash again, trying to finish before everybody else so we can get that app in and start filling out the questions. And the first document you have to upload, you can't upload anything. So you're refreshing, trying, you're trying to go through the application, can't upload any documents. So then you get back on the forum. Oh, can you upload that? No, nobody can upload documents. Oh, everybody's kicked out. And then we're all kicked out again. But you can't leave, because if for some reason it opens up, you're out of there, or you will not get your $500,000, which will change the future of your business. And so for 4.5 hours, here I am, like, in between, like, getting up to do some jumping jacks just to, like, just my burpees, just so I don't lose my mind. And so get back on, try again. And then SBA just shut it all down. So, and now we wait. Now we wait some more.
Yeah. It's unbelievable to me that could be such a big failure. I mean, I guess I don't know why I'm surprised, but
I was going to say,
I'm not surprised.
It did not surprise me. It did not surprise me one bit. It reminded me, I don't know if you watched Saturday Night Live, but they had a brilliant skit, and it was like, does anything work?
Yeah.
And I watched that, and I'm like, oh my, yes, this is my year. Does anything work? And
it is, yeah. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised, but it's sort of appalling to think that in this country we're so unprepared for this on so many levels, and it's crazy. And we're a year in, and things still are not fixed. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, I think too, like, especially with like those government services and things like that, like, all the best, brightest people are not working there. Like, to be completely honest, like, I've been in tech my whole life.
Right, that's right. Oh my God.
Having someone even suggest like a government job, I'm just like, for what?
Right.
So like, I think that's what ends up happening. And so like, then you have, the private sector is just like, killing it, innovation day after day. There's a new app for this that fixed this problem that we experienced this week. And like, so all these things are being remedied, but like, then at the same time, like those services that we really depend on, and this is that piece of infrastructure that is probably the most important, is like, if I log in to a government website, it should resolve and a page should show up on the screen. But it's a very real problem. It's a very real problem. It's not just this, like, I think just government services in general, it's slower, and really the talent that they need, they're just not getting it because it's slower. Like no one really wants to work.
Right. Is encouraged to work for the government.
Yeah.
So AB and Dre, Tami was talking about how many venues will not open back up. So, and that's obviously clearly all over the place. So how does that affect artists? The fact that, a lot of the places where you would be performing and playing are not going to be there anymore. So, I mean, maybe that's an obvious question. Okay, so there's, they're not there, but what do you think? What do you do?
I mean, I think like the virtual stuff was just kind of like a natural, like, segue. Like, and I do think in a lot of ways, like that made sense. It's always been like a supplemental thing, that we did. It just, I don't think anyone was planning on it being the only thing, like the only way you can connect with people who like your stuff is now this like literally a virtual like exchange of energy, which like is basically nothing for the performer. Like the performer's not getting anything out of that. And like, I think that's probably been like why I don't love doing like a lot of the streaming stuff. It's not because I don't think it's cool. Like I actually do. I find it exhausting in a different way because like I'm doing all this stuff and I'm shoving all of my energy like this way, but I'm not getting anything back. And I'm just like, oh, I just stood up here, in my studio and performed for 2 hours. And I guess I'll just put my hoodie back on and go upstairs. there's no after the show or after you're done or you're, talking to friends or talking to people backstage, like, so you don't get any of that back. And creative energy is like kind of finite. Like you can't keep just pushing stuff out and not get anything back. And to me, like creatively, I think that's probably been the biggest struggle and like why venues being closed is so impactful. It's not just the ability to have a place, where you go and perform. Like, yes, that's definitely part of it, but like there's so much more that I think people had no idea that, a venue is just kind of like the linchpin for stuff, but there's this whole ecosystem of things that are connecting that make up what the music industry is. So, because it's not just concerts, it's not just shows, it's not just tours, it's not just people releasing music videos or even in a studio creating or writing or whatever. It's literally all those things have to be on full cylinders all the time for any of this stuff to be working. And I think it starts with the artist because the artist has to be able to create. And it's incredibly difficult, I think, to do that right now with you have to have a team of people. Like it's very difficult, I think, to be a solo artist right now and trying to inspire yourself on a daily basis and pull this stuff from deep within when you've been locked in a house for a year. The world is just complete mayhem, like all the time. We've never been in a time where there's less distractions and yet more everywhere. And it's stuff that actually impacts your real life. So it just is, it's a really, I don't know, it's been a very sobering experience in a lot of ways. It's been humbling in the way to realize how collective of an effort the music industry really is. It doesn't happen without anyone. You need fans because fans are buying tickets to be at the shows. There's no show if there's no musician or performer performing. There's no show if the venue isn't there for the fans to gather in and the musician to be there. That's probably not as enhanced if there's not a bar and there's bartenders and there's people, taking tickets at the front and security, bouncers at the door. All of these people are out of work right now. And my biggest concern is, especially for the mid and small size venues, Because that's really like the backbone of the music industry in America. Like a lot of people think it's the big stuff. It's not. That's like 0.1% of like, you know, what's really going on. It's really like the 200-person venues, 300-person venues, 500-person venues, places like Pyramid Scheme, places like Billy's, like where that's the touring type venues where like bands are jumping in their van, you know, and like coming up with a whole tour. So like, I'm just worried about those venues in particular being really vulnerable to closure and a fast acquisition from places like AEG and Live Nation. And I have nothing against them, but like they own a lot of venues. They, you know, orchestrate the vast majority of the really large tours. And it could change the way music tours work, venues work for a long time to come if something like that happens.
Man.
Not to be Debbie Downer or anything.
No. AB, you want to jump in there?
I love.
They're out there like cultures. Yeah.
I love what she said.
Murphy said we do have a question.
So I want to get to this question.
Yeah, specifically about virtual events too. So Joshua wants to know if you think that virtual events are here to stay in some form going forward. You know, even natural. Yeah.
Joshua, you are right.
Yeah, I think they are too. Especially like the switch of a lot of people trying to figure out what platform should we be using for streaming, and like to watch Twitch blow up like the way that it has, which was primarily for gaming. And now, you know, tons of musicians are using that as like a new revenue platform because they've been able to take what they've done for this thing and then kind of pivot it, you know, to something else. That wasn't what Twitch was built for, but that's what we're using it for now. So there's stuff like that I think, you know, has been interesting, and I don't think that stuff's going away.
Yeah.
And I think too, like with limited capacity for venues when they get back open, people are going to have to figure out, or it could be beneficial to figure out how to offer this experience in a virtual way for the people that can't make it physically. But that also makes me think of Tami's point, is like how much sense will it make for a venue to get that production level of a virtual event that someone is going to pay for has to be like very high. You know what I mean? So how much time and energy will a small venue want to put into, you know, having multiple camera angles and having finding someone as awesome as Murphy to run the back end and make it all work. You know what I'm saying? Like that's hard. That's a hard thing to figure out. I know that I know Joshua, who asked the question, I know that he has been heavily involved in the virtual DJ world throughout the pandemic. Shout out there. But I also know that he has a team that he works with as well, and there's multiple DJs involved. And I don't know all of the details of his operation, but they do a great job. But I know that they do a lot of work that people don't see behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And so I just wonder, to Tami's point of how these virtual events are going to be here in some way, shape, or form for the next couple of years, I would imagine. How much time do you put into it? Only to then have to go back to, because honestly, performing for a virtual audience is completely different than performing for a live audience. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't get to play off of the things that are happening in front of you. It's so different. So even from a performance standpoint, that's hard to go back and to go back and forth from like, I'm gonna be an awesome virtual performer and connect with my audience. And like Dre said, after the show's done, there's nobody's talking. So after the show's done, if you want to know what people thought, you gotta go online and read comments.
Yeah, I'm not a performer.
Like, oh, 2 hours ago, they were loving this vibe that I was spinning. 2 hours ago, they were loving it. Now I should. Well, now they're gone. Now they're in the bedroom. I can't get it.
You were mentioning, running these live events, our team, we get to run these events in person, and just to, I'm not a performer, but I'm running these behind the scenes. And, even with our 5x5 nights, it used to get done and people would be like, oh, what a great event. And now I produce a whole event and bring people on and off stage and play a slideshow and do all this stuff. And then I'm like, good job, me, and close my computer. And you like, nobody's like, good job. You just lose that. So it's draining even for the people who are producing and putting on the event.
It's very anticlimactic, right?
Oh, and then let's,
yeah.
And then as a profession and as a way to make money, let's be real, like people are not paying for virtual events like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So there was a question that popped up in my personal thing about like, are people going to be willing to pay? So let's talk. Can we talk about that? Like, are people willing to pay for virtual events?
I want to ask that. I was going to talk about, do you think now, what do we think about what people are willing to pay for live music, versus virtual events? And I mean, people are so starved right now for a real live experience. Does that mean that people are going to be willing to pay more, understanding that, venues and artists need to be propped up right now? Do you think that will happen?
As I'm thinking about both of those questions, well, and just to piggyback on Andrea really quick, there are, AEG and these other massive conglomerates, they are circling around independent venues and picking them up left and right, which is a real threat to our industry in terms of the creativity and the freedom and the access. And so that's something that everybody should be concerned about. And yet another reason to get public funds to these venues so that they can remain independently owned. In terms of the virtual, so the yoga studio I go to, From the Heart Yoga, they just started doing in person again, and they're also keeping a Zoom option. So as I think about, as we begin doing live shows, again, depending on, we'd have to run all the numbers, and depending on the cost of having that sort of, okay, you can pay to access the show virtually, or you can attend. It's really expensive to do. So I don't know that the numbers would work. I do know that people cannot wait to get back into a venue. There's, I'm on these calls every week, but Intersection, Audio Tree, they just announced a couple shows, and they're selling tons of tickets. Like they sold 500 tickets for one show in like one day. I mean, people cannot wait. They are starved. They cannot wait to get back to live music. So I'm not worried about the demand one bit. Music fans tend to be a little more, they're not as afraid of risk as others. I mean, we are very concerned about everybody staying safe. And then another big conversation everybody's having is like, what about these vaccines? Are the staff all going to need to be vaccinated? Are the fans all going to be vaccinated? Are you going to have exceptions? Are you just not going to ask? What are you going to do? I mean, because if you've been to the pyramid scheme, when you have 420 people in there, I mean, it is, you are packed in, you are breathing everybody's air.
Yeah.
So, and then let alone like dancing and singing along, then you're breathing even more people's air. So,
right.
So those are all the things that the venue associations in Michigan and nationally are trying to figure out. So we're talking more about all that kind of stuff more than virtual, because virtual, I think like the Versus thing is just amazing. I think artists are just kind of doing some incredible virtual stuff. I haven't seen as much of that coming out of venues themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you guys think of, this is kind of it's a controversial topic. What do you think of the whole idea of the vaccine passport to be allowed to, go to venues and travel and all that stuff?
I'm.
That's too touchy. We don't have to talk about it. I mean, it is. I think it's a.
I think everybody. I want to avoid all of that if we can. Ideally. But there are already businesses announcing that they're going to do that. I haven't heard of any venues outright saying they're going to do that, but I've certainly heard of airlines or others or various countries. So. In terms of small businesses, this whole situation has just laid such a massive burden on us as we are just relentlessly critiqued for opening, for not opening, for masks, for every single thing we do, we get a load of nasty messages. So that's been really draining and difficult for our staff and difficult for us. And I mean, luckily I have pretty thick skin at this point, but I mean, every time you make an announcement, you know, get ready, here they come, you know, block a bunch more people. So with the whole vaccine thing, that's going to be yet another situation where we're going to be put in the middle of this crazy political fight. So my hope is that we can get this thing under control and don't have to get involved in that. But all the venues are talking about it right now. I can tell you that.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to say, I feel like if it's left up to businesses to decide if they want to, you know, participate in that and implement that, if there's a business that will significantly be helped by something like that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then I don't really care.
Yeah.
You know, if yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like now. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, masks. You know, I mean, we have a mask mandate. I go places, and sometimes there's people not wearing masks, and even though there's a sign at the door that says you should wear a mask, you know, and it's not necessarily being enforced. So I think it's
Well, we need RoboCops at the door. literally RoboCop at the door.
Yeah, not
RoboCop.
Well, and I think another thing that every single one of us are struggling with is staffing and employees. And this is industry wide in the service industry. It's at all the bars, it's at all the restaurants, it's at all the venues. You know, most venues are just completely shuttered. But those of us that are trying to do some kind of operation or, you know, the meanwhile, every single restaurant owner I've talked to is, you know, there is massive staffing shortages, the employees market right now. And part of that is because of this incredibly intense, draining experience of trying to navigate all of this stuff.
Where did everyone go?
Where did everyone go?
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, like all the people, the door staff that would, you know, check you in, the bar backs, servers, like where, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah. So we had 30-ish staff when we shut down, and now I think we have 8 that are still with us. And we are hiring right now. But it's a variety. Some folks took the opportunity to just go on unemployment and work on other projects. Some went into the cannabis industry. Some briefly worked at Amazon delivering packages. It's been across the board. A lot of people's expenses are way down because they can't do anything. So they'll just have like one person in the house, or the other one is helping with the kids in school. So I think these are just like anecdotally what I'm hearing from my staff and other people I know. But a lot of folks are just saying, well, if I can get X amount of unemployment and I don't have to deal with any of this craziness and or expose myself to anything, or I can get $100 more working X amount of hours. So I think a lot of people are just making the calculation where it's just safer and again, less draining and less dramatic. So they're just staying home and
yeah, very true. I guess this is more for Dre and AB, but I was also thinking about what about private events? Maybe not well, at a venue perhaps, but you know, I'm thinking, you know, all the different types of artists, whether it's DJs or you know, bands and singers and that are hired for private weddings and corporate events and things like that. I don't know how many corporate events are happening right now, but I certainly feel like I know of enough people that are starting to have, you know, small weddings and things. Mm-hmm. Do you see that?
I have seen a lot of activity with everything that you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. With like personally, and with other DJs and other performers that I know that there are a lot of like very private events happening. You know what I mean? We talk about it as a private event, but it's like, you know, someone's mansion and you're in the backyard, and their backyard party is not like 20 people. It's like hundreds of people. You know what I mean? We're also able to dictate the terms, right? Like if I go DJ there, you know what I mean, and I need space, you know, I can talk about that. I can talk about how if I'm coming here to your home to DJ, these are the things I need in place so that I feel safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You guys have decided to come here, and if you guys want to dance on each other's faces out there, like, you can do that. But just know that I'm not taking song requests. You know what I'm saying? But also, I think I have seen more. I have some corporate work that I do as well, and I have seen more activity and more energy being put into the virtual stuff too.
Yeah,
I will say that, like, I'm in a fortunate position to be able to do some of those things, and that's not like a typical avenue for most performers and DJs either. You know what I mean? But it could become that. You know what I'm saying? That could be like the growth thing that could happen this year, is that, you know, all these virtual events are happening and people are trying to find ways to connect virtually. I mean, Spectrum Health just did like a whole lunch music series for, you know, 6 or 7 weeks, where they were all, you know, different musicians and different performers were able to perform and get paid well, you know what I'm saying, for lunch, DJ, music, poetry, hip hop sets and stuff like that. So that was cool. So I do think that there is going to be, you know, opportunities in that way.
Yeah. But you know, it's,
go ahead. Sorry.
And the weddings are like people are in love, and they've been thinking about weddings for their whole life. Like, they're not going to stop doing that. You know what I mean? And that's the same way. Like, they're finding venues that will let them do it. And if they're not finding a venue, I mean, I've literally had people be like, oh, like, we can't do it in Michigan, but we're going to, the rules in Indiana are different. And so we found a house in Indiana, and we want you, and, you know what I mean? Like, it's stuff, people are going to find ways to do that stuff. And if artists are doing well and performing well, they'll find, people will find them, and they'll find ways to do that.
Yeah. No, Dre, I was just going to comment back, you know, when you started talking a little while ago about, you know, doing the virtual events, and how for you as an artist, you know, the experience, you get no feedback because, you know, I think people think about it as a, you know, as an attendee or, you know, on the other end, you know, sometimes a virtual event can be really fun. I mean, I know my son, there was a concert he was going to go to, it got canceled. And so then the artist decided to do it virtually. And so, you know, he had a couple of people over to his house, and they all watched it. And he was like, oh my God, it was so amazing. But then sure, for you, because you watched it and you got to have that experience, but for that artist, you're right. It's done. You don't know how people are reacting. So, yeah, I think it is not that creative experience. It's an experience. It pays, you know, you get paid for it, hopefully, but yeah, it's kind of flat on your end.
Yeah, it's just is really different. Like, if you think about what performing even is, like, right. It's you whatever thing you made, you know, and depending on what the set is, but like a lot of the music like that I play, like I made it. Like, so it's not like it's, you know, always someone else's stuff. Like, sometimes it is depending on the show, but like it's like stuff that I have made in my studio, and it's like I'm sharing this intensely personal thing that you're already like kind of scared to share it anyway, because it's like, oh my God, like what if people don't like it? Like, but you're sharing this thing that you've made in your like lab with the masses, and then it's like, okay, so you do that, and then you're like,
yeah.
Okay. And like, for the most part, you know, I think musicians, like, we're not looking for validation like that. It's like, you get to a point where you're like, okay, I figured this out. Like, I know I'm good at this, need some work on this, need some work on this. Like, we know that kind of stuff, but it's like, we're normal human beings too. Everyone likes to hear like, oh, like that was really cool. Like you spent 3 months on that. That's great that you spent 3 months on it, instead of like, oh, I spent 3 months on this thing. Like, I set all this stuff up and I just performed for 2 hours. And like, literally it feels like no one cares. like you have to really like mentally kind of get over that of like, you know what, like you have to find like that replenishment from somewhere else. So like, that's like when like me and AB have like conversations, or like me and Tami, or like other friends, when you're just like, because you get in this mode of like, why am I doing this?
Right.
Maybe I should
especially
like, I don't know. So like, it's a strange like experience, I feel like, over the last year of like, because it's been like this, you know, it's like, okay, our event's gonna happen. Okay, probably not. Okay, cool. Like virtual, this seems cool. Then you do one and you're like, that kind of sucked. Maybe I'll try another one. So it's like you're constantly trying new things. Right. And like, I'm just like, you know, like I do like some of the virtual ones. Like I said, when it's a setup, it's cool. It's just that like when it's, you know, something very basic, like I have a hard time like throwing my energy in it, because I know when I'm done, I'm just going to be tired. Like, right. It's really weird.
And sometimes the numbers are hard too. You know, sometimes it's hard for Dre, especially, you know what I'm saying, doing festivals in Detroit for thousands of people, you know what I'm saying, to go and being at Pyramid Scheme, and there's 400 people, you know what I'm saying, like going crazy for 4 hours straight, you know what I'm saying, to then doing like a 2-hour DJ set and then watching to see who's watching. And then you see like numbers like 33, right. 36.
And then people go in and out.
18.
Yeah, it's like people be in there. And I get it, because I do the same thing. This is the other thing too. I'm not a lover of consuming virtual events either. Like I will watch some of them, like the Versus stuff. Some of them have been like super enjoyable. Some I'm like, I can take it or leave it. But like me as an artist, I still am like, I don't know if this is how I want to consume this thing that this person made. Like, because I was really thinking about what would I pay, you know, for a concert. Like, and I'm like, who would I be willing to pay $100 to like get online and like see a performance from them? Like, I don't even know if I would pay that to see Beyonce perform. Honestly. And I think that she's amazing, but I'm like, I don't know that I would do that. And even if I did spend the $100, I guarantee you, I'm not going to be a captive audience. I'm going to be doing other stuff. I'm going to be multitasking, maybe making dinner, maybe on my laptop. But like, I think that's the struggle is like, without the venue, you don't have undivided attention, like from people. So it creates this bizarre, like fragmented, distracting experience for people that I don't know if they like it or not. I don't know.
Well, and I mean, you know, I think music is meant to be a shared experience, right? And so if you are somebody who goes to concerts or wants to have live music, you know, virtual is just, it's not what you really want. And you go there for that shared experience. So yeah, I mean, I think we could sit here and talk for, you know, another hour or so, but it is after 11. I would love to just have each one of you real quick just say, like, how can we support you guys? What would you ask people to do aside from being, you know, patient with, you know, how things are going to hopefully open back up, but just kind of maybe give us some words of wisdom.
Well, I would just say real quick, when we finally do events and when I'm doing an event at the Pyramid Scheme, buy your tickets like right away. Thank you.
I would just say, like, you know, when events do open up, and whether they're virtual or not virtual, like extend some reasonableness, some patience, and some grace. Like, we're all tired. Even the people who don't work in this industry are also exhausted because this is an exhausting experience dealing with the pandemic. So just, frankly, just be nice. Like, we all want to go out, wear a mask, get vaccinated if you are okay with it. Like, just please do something so we can get out of the house.
Yeah, I agree with all of those things. Think about, I can't believe I have to keep saying this, but think about what you want to be around in another year. You know, this is not over. I was really hopeful it would be over by now. It's not. Yeah. Michigan is in a bad state right now. So your money will decide what's going to be left. So if you care about venues, if you care about artists, if you care about small businesses, please spend your money there. And please be kind and understanding. We have been through the ringer as an industry. As you mentioned, you know, venues were the first to close, will be the last to open. We're nothing without the artists. We need the artists to keep creating, because without artists, there's no point in having a venue. So please, if you want to support us specifically, we do have to-go and outdoor service. We are hiring right now. If you know anyone who is looking for work, we also are still renting pinball, and even just shooting messages to people, just cheering them on. You know, I can't tell you how much that's helped me. Just random texts and people checking in and saying kind things or saying they miss what you were doing. You know, that's as we talk about all of our very low energy levels, that can help give us a little boost.
Yep. Right. Well, I really appreciate you guys talking this morning, and I hope that we can, you know, we don't have to do many more of these virtual events. Thank you, Murphy, for again being our tech guru, and I hope to see you guys all soon in person. So
thank you so much.
Great. Thank you
for being here.
Thank you for having us.